Okay, so today I want to walk you guys through some concepts I've been playing with. I've been experimenting with a lot of like vortexes and particle systems, and also exporting them out as Alembic meshes to have more flexibility with them. So I want to walk you guys through, take you guys through the process of how I'm getting shots like this and lighting them also. And then also showing you how you can get multiple shots by using just one Alembic meshes, and then also increasing the amount of particles using the Alembic meshes. So as you can see, I'm starting off here. I'm going to walk you guys back through. So I also have two different files. I have this file, which is the end file where the Alembic mesh ends up in. And then I also have the original file where I actually have the simulation in. So let's start in the simulation file. Let's see, Vortex 2. So let's open this up, and I'll kind of just walk you guys through the process. I can't remember exactly what I did, but I'll just show you guys how it's set up. So basically what I did was I created a box here, and this box is containing the particles inside of the particles are being contained inside the box basically, because I don't want them just flying everywhere. So I just want to make sure that they stay within the box. I have a certain amount, and I don't want to lose any of them. They're being simulated throughout the whole time. As you can see over here in this area, I have about 51,000 particles. And then I'm also using the lifetime throughout the whole duration of the simulation. So they're never dying out. Okay. Also, what I have is I have a couple forces in the scene too throughout the simulation to create better patterns. So it's not just like this static spin where everything is even. I want to have some turbulence inside the spin. So as you guys can see, you can see irregularities inside the spinning of the particles. So I like these little patterns that I'm getting. It just makes the shapes more interesting. Also adding noise too, to kind of create, something that's not so flat, but also has kind of a heel shape. And that's just like the turbulence and the noise working together. So I have turbulence, a vortex, and I have one more. I can't remember what it is. Let me see if I can find here what it is. So I got a vortex, turbulence, and then a force. That's right. I have a force. Okay. And the force is pulling in everything just a tad bit so that it doesn't just continue hitting the wall. So I have a vortex pushing things out, and then the force is pulling things back in so it doesn't hit the wall and everything. It's just stuck to the wall as the vortex is spinning. So let's just play it real quick, and I can show you guys what the simulation looks like. So it starts off with the particles on the ground. As I had said, these particles are here throughout the whole time. They never die out. And so as it spins, it starts to create this nice pattern with the turbulence happening throughout this simulation. So as you can see, this simulation is pretty slow because I have so many particles, right? And this is why I don't just stick with having my end result as a particle sim. I'd rather bake that down into an Alembic mesh so that I have more flexibility in the end, and it's not resimming every time. So once it plays through once, it actually plays through faster in Blender though, which is nice. For some reason it's not happening this time, but it usually does, where you run it all the way through and then it'll play smooth. So this is the particle sim. Just walking you guys through real quick. Again, I have a box to contain everything. I have a collision happening. So these particles collide with the box. So you got to make sure that you set up a collision, and then the particles itself is being emitted through a plane here. So this is where the particles emit from, and they start on this plane, and then the forces lift it up and start spinning everything. Okay. All right, so let's switch over. I'm going to start a new scene. I'm just going to show you what it looks like when you import an Alembic mesh. So I'm going to import that same simulation that I have here. So let's look for Alembic. And then I'm going to navigate over to where I have them saved. So I have a couple different Alembic meshes. So it's this one. And then import Alembic. Okay, So when it first imports, it's going to actually import everything. So let me switch to wireframe. And if I start playing it through, you'll see that there's my mesh. Okay. So I'm going to select just the particles, and then I'm going to invert the selection and delete everything else. All I want is the particles. Okay. And then I'm also going to make sure that my scene is set at 640 frames, which is what I had it at in my simulation. So this is the entire animation. Now let's play it back real quick. So as you can see, it plays very smooth, right? So if you look, now we have it really smooth. I can rotate around it really nicely. It's moving very fast, okay? So the nice thing too is I can take it, I can duplicate it around. So now I got 3, and they're all playing at the same time. So this is really nice too. And it's still pretty smooth. Everything is still playing fairly smooth on my end. I'm getting a little bit of lag, but it's still all good. So let's undo this. And then let me show you one more thing. So also with Alembic meshes, what's nice is if I go to my modifiers tab, the mesh itself is a modifier. It imports as a modifier. So you get a couple options here with the Alembic meshes. Obviously that right here, this is the path to the file. So I could even go here and use something different if I wanted to and import a different Alembic mesh. If I go over here, down here to my timing, I can also offset the timing. So since I just copied this over, I could say, hey, I want to set this like 32 frames ahead, right? And see, this one is, so actually, I don't know why I did that. Let me see. Can't remember. Oh, okay. So I know what I did. I need to just make this unique. So let me click on that. And now if I set this back to 0, these two meshes play at 2 different times. So the one on the right is playing 32 frames ahead. So they're all both offset, basically. I think one is playing 32 frames behind that. I'm looking at it. I always thought it was 32 frames ahead. So this one is playing 32 frames ahead. And then the other, no, I'm sorry. This is 32 frames behind. Okay, so now we got it right. 32 frames behind. I always thought it was 32 frames ahead. Okay, so it's 32 frames back. Wish it would be a negative number instead, but we're offsetting it by 32 frames. So they're just playing at 2 different times, which is cool. So this is a way to also set it up so that if you want to have it look like it has more particles in a simulation, you could do this also. Yes, there's no collisions, of course, but it's a way to cheat if you want faster results, right? So I can sit here and offset this so that we have more particles. Okay, so we'll come back to that. I'll show you guys some other stuff in the end result and when we make the final composition. Okay, moving on. The thing about importing a Alembic mesh is that these are just vertices. These are not geometry. They're all vertices. So we cannot even see these particles if I were to render. So if I was to sit here and add a light into the scene. So let's add a light real quick. Add a point light. You can see that it's not even being lit. And I'll just add a sphere just to prove that this light is working. I'll add the monkey actually. So we can see that this light is here, but the mesh is not being lit. It's because that these items or these particles right now are vertices. So what we have to do is change them into meshes, and the way we're going to do that is we're going to take advantage of using geometry nodes. Okay, so if we're switching over here to geometry nodes editor, I'm gonna hit N to get rid of that. I'm going to select the mesh, hit new. I'm not advanced in geometry nodes by any chance. I still have a lot of learning to do, but this is what I've learned so far. So I'll show you guys how to just do a quick setup. Okay, so if we go here, and I'm going to do Shift A, and I'm going to type in points, mesh, and mesh to points is what we need. So if I hit that, drag it on top, now we're getting a mesh. Okay, so right here, we're making all kinds of points, and we can change the size by just holding Shift to draw it slow. So we can see now we got little points everywhere. Okay, so now we got some mesh data. And so now if I turn my scene back to light, now it's being lit. So now we got mesh data. And as you can see, when it renders them as spheres. And then in the solid state, we have just diamond points. Okay. So this is how it works. Okay. So now the next thing that we need to know is our material. So if I go here and make a new material, let's just make it red, 2.25, make it very reflective, and then render. So let's see what happens when we render it. Okay, so as you can see, the material is not showing up yet. Okay, so what we also have to do, since these are geometry nodes, we have to add the material here. So if we type in set material and then add it in the line also, now we can set our material. So now we have the material set. Okay. So this is how this is just a basic setup. The particles are working now. I can script the animation. Right. So now we're getting some look development. Okay. One thing that I would like to learn pretty soon is how I could take this a little further as to, taking advantage of the material, maybe creating like a gradient effect on the particles. That would be really cool if I could figure that out at some point. And also using geometry nodes, I would like to also figure out how I could take advantage of maybe having a collection instance of different objects, and then taking advantage of the geometry nodes to instance those objects across the points so that they're randomized versus just having, all of these as spheres. But that's a video for another time once I learn how to do that. Okay, so next thing I'm going to show you guys is, now we're going to just move into the look development phase, and I'm going to open up my final file. So we're going to not save this. I think I've covered everything here. So we're going to switch over to the other file, which is Vortex Alembic. Okay, so let's go there. Okay, so this one, so same thing. We did the same process. I imported the Alembic mesh, and then from there, I took the mesh and I started playing with it. I just started scrubbing through this timeline. And then once I got there, I set up a simple camera, and the camera is just pointing straight down at the simulation, the Alembic mesh import. Okay, so once I had the camera set up, I set it at 135 for my focal length, and then I also added depth of field, which is at 1.8 f-stop, and then I also created a focus point. So let me see where my focus point. So I created a big focus point, which is a simple empty object, and I added that as my focus point inside the camera here. Yes, right here. So we added that focus point here. So the camera's focusing on that. And then once we got there, I threw it into the render mode, and then I added a simple area light, and I started playing with that. So what I did was I took the area light and just started moving it around to find something that I like. And what I like to do is I always like to get like a deep shadows in my shots. So with having depth of field, right? So we're focusing on this point here because my focus point is there. I'm getting a very nice look. So I got a lot of depth in my shot. So we got this foreground, and it's taking us into the frame spinning, and then we focus right here. And so the light, it gives the particles a nice shape. So, again, I just added a simple light. I didn't make it too big because I didn't want my shadows to get too soft. And then from there, I just developed my shot more. So another thing that I did, as I had said earlier, you can copy these meshes fairly easily. So as you can see over here in my, I can't remember what this is called. Anyway, with whatever this is called, I got a vortex 1, vortex 2, and 3. So I got 3 different vortexes, and I offset the timing on these first 2, and then the third one, I made them very small, kind of like sand almost. So once I was there, the next thing I did was I wanted to explore having multiple shots. So I took advantage of Blender's ability to have different scenes within one file. I did a full copy, and then I made a new scene. And as you can see here, I was playing with, like, maybe let's add a product in and create like cool abstract product shot, right? So let's just hide this for now. Anyhow, so I came up with another shot. I really like this shot, right? We're being led right into the shot. It's spinning us in, and then we end up at the subject, right? And so again, I'm playing with adding some product, make this like a cool product shot. Maybe add like the PlayStation 5 controller or something. That's what I'm actually thinking, and changing the color scheme to like black particles, maybe with the sand. The third one, remember I said I had some sand particles, making the third one's very small, like some like little glow particles or something that's flying throughout here. And then we got the PlayStation 5 controller. I think that'll be a cool shot that I'm going to develop. So I'll probably make another video for that. Okay, so again, once I had this shot, I wanted to create another one. And the way I'm doing this, all I'm doing is I'm keeping my camera where it's at, and I'm taking the mesh and I'm just rotating it around. So I'll show you a practical example of that right now. So I'm going to let's take shot 100, and we're going to just simply make a full copy. So now I got another new shot. So you can see here, just made a duplicate. So I'm going to name it shot 0400. It's because I like to make sure I name my stuff properly. I could do this a lot more organized, but I was just in the mode of developing. I could have created another scene where it's like I hold all the assets. So if you see right here, I hold the earphones here so that I can just instance that these earphones across all the scenes. So I'm not using so much memory in my scene. So I could have better organized this stuff where I like had my vortex here and any other objects, and then taking those objects into these scenes and say collection instance, and then bring it in. However, I wasn't so organized, and that's okay. Sometimes you just want to get into the creative part. You can always organize it later. It turns into something bigger. So, okay, so now we got our fourth shot, right? So now I'm going to create a new shot. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take all of these vortexes, and I'm going to start rotating them around. Basically, that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to leave my camera where it's at. I like where it's at. It's just a lot simpler to do it this way. So I'm just going to say, let's take the camera or the vortex, do something like that. Right? Maybe I could spin it. Oop. So maybe I could spin it. And the Z, I don't even need to do that. So let's try something like this. Like how that's looking. And then we could do something like that and say, now I could take my focus point. So let's find my focus point, select that. And now I could just move my focus point around again. So I could take the focus point, maybe shift it on the back part, move it forward so I can see where it's at, the crosshair. And I can move my focus point to like the foreground if I want it. So say I wanted to move it right here. Maybe want to just focus on here, create a different type of shot, right? So I could do that instead, or maybe push it back way over here, look beyond, right? Or we could just do a cool animation, right? We could do that too. But I'm going to set my focus point, say, more in the foreground, I'm thinking this time, because we already have shots of the spiral. So I'm going to set it something like that. Maybe it's even closer, actually. So we're not getting that foreshortening. Yeah, I like that. Right there. Okay, so now I'm going to take my light and do some more lighting development on this shot. Okay, so now I'm just simply going to move my light up and down. See what happens with that first. Right. I like that. See, I like really getting like the particles itself on this. I have a very reflective material because they're so small. And if I do like, I tried doing something like this at first, but they turn very matte. It gets a very matte look. And I like how the highlights are being picked up on the particles when it's very reflective. So that's why I kept it very reflective instead. And so what I like is like getting these high contrast reflections and lighting on one side and then very deep shadows on the opposite side. And so like even in here in the foreground, look at the bokehs right here. These are very nice. And that's because the material is highly reflective, those high specs on them, even back here, right? where the shot's out of focus, that's again the material being very reflective. So those bokehs are blurring over each other or overlapping at each other. So again, moving my light around, I'm going to go to the top view. I like where the light's at right now, so I'm going to move it up and down from the top view, see what we get, right? So now it's more of a shot where I'm lighting the spiral, and then this foreground is a lot darker. I like that too. So let's move it right about there, see what we get. So I think I'm going to go right here. I like this. I'm going to move it back here, I think. Let's move it back just a little bit. Back. Okay. Maybe back here. Yeah. Maybe not, actually. Yeah, see, this is how look development works. It's like, okay, making decisions. Do I like that? Do I not like that? And then all of a sudden your mind changes in 5 seconds. So I think I'm going to go with something like this here, and then maybe pull it back so that it's not so bright. So we're just going to continue pulling back a little bit. Yeah, see, I like that. That's nice. That's nice. Okay. I'm going to go with this. So here we go. We got a new shot, right? And then I can also, since this is a particle sim, I can start scrubbing through. I'm going to get some different results now, right? Look at that. Look at this shape in the foreground now. So I can just scrub through and find something that I really, really like. So I think I'm going to go with something right about here. That is cool right there. I like that. Look at all these shapes. So yeah, I'm going to go with that. I like that. Maybe back 1 frame. Nope. 93, 94. Let's go with that. So cool. I like this shot. So I could just do a simple render. I know we're rendering in the viewport, but I'm going to set my light paths, sampling, viewport, render. What's my denoise set at? I'm going to set it to optics. And then maybe just 128, something simple, quick, easy. Oh, the earphones are still there. I forgot to turn it off for the render. So let's turn off the earphones and then hit render. So let's see what this looks like. It's going to be a quick render. Pull back. So this is it. So the render's done. It's about to denoise it real quick. And that's it. So you can just do some cool look development shots like this, just using particles, importing an Alembic mesh, adding a light, some cool depth of field. Make sure you use a high focal length on your camera, like 135, 85, 120, 180, 200. And the benefit of that, the reason you want to use a high focal length is because when you have a high focal length, it presses things together. So if I was to use like a 24 millimeter, I'm not going to get this look because in the physical world, when you're using wide lenses, you get less depth of field, even though you're like at like 1.8. But when you're using high focal lengths, like 50 and above, now you're starting to press the background and foreground together. They start to compress together. You can look up charts like this online and find stuff like that, and I'll show you how this stuff works. But the higher the focal length, the more depth of field you get in your shots, basically. So usually cameras are about like good depth of field is like a 1.8 lens, a 1.4. That's when you see those high bokeh shots, And then like even 135, you can even use like a f-stop of like 2.8 instead, So it's all about the focal length. It compresses things together, and then that depth of field really starts to work, So it's a different way of doing things. Sometimes most CG artists, they want to jump to like using these real wide lenses, but I would implore you guys to use something where you're at a higher focal length instead, because now you're pressing all these things together, and now you can make these really cool compositions, and it's just working in an abstract way when you're using these particles. So it's a lot more fun. What else did I want to show you guys? I think this is it. again, I think I want to do another concept playing with the PlayStation controller, and using a different color scheme, maybe using blacks and blues, indigo blues. So maybe I'll make another video like that. Appreciate you guys coming through. I'll have some more videos up, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.